I received a wise comment on the previous video, which is very interesting to consider. Why use a generator when you can just buy a small engine like the Honda GX50 and connect it directly to the drivetrain? Now, what is described here is that he removed the rear disc brake and put in a sprocket, and that's how he connected the small engine, which I assume was placed somewhere in the rear luggage area above the rear wheel, and you connect a throttle cable to it and some kind of a stop and start mechanism. I don't know if he has an electric starter or not. Some small engines have an electric starter. In my opinion, that's just making things more complicated. So I would, if I went with an internal combustion engine, I would much prefer to not have electricity on it, but to be pure. I can pull a wire or some switch or something and start it out that way, which is how the earliest combustion engine cars used to work. So he's claiming 200 miles per gallon with this setup, which is not bad. I would say some of the energy is definitely going to be lost. And in general, combustion engines are not gonna, they run hot, so a lot of the energy is lost in heat. So you're never gonna get the kind of the kind of energy efficiency that you get from electrics. But still, 200 miles per gallon is probably sufficient for anybody, and the power of not having to worry about the range and where you're going to find the next charger and all of that, that's really powerful. So this is something worth considering, and I'm going to give you some links below. Check out some of these machines that you can get. But before I continue, make sure to download my book, give a subscribe, a like, or a share, whichever you prefer. And back onto the content. So this is the Honda engine this viewer was talking about. It's actually made in China. It has a little gas tank on it, but it's so tiny. I assume you might want to maybe carry a separate half-gallon jug or something to put the gasoline in, or the ethanol, because my understanding is, and I tested this for years, any of the gasoline engines that run on E10, which is the currently legal type of fuel sold in the US, could run on E40. So I would want to run this on 40% ethanol, which is also known as half and half. You put E85 in first, you fill it up to half, and you top it off with the other half with the gasoline of your choice. Ethanol is a lighter fuel, so it's going to rise up, and pure gasoline is going to be heavier, so it's going to fall down, and the two will mix. I tried this. I ran this for 3 years in my car. I had no problem. In fact, I was running E50, 50%. That's 60% E85 combined with gasoline. But this ethanol thing is going to be another video. Check this out. The price is less than the price of what I would pay for a high quality Panasonic or Samsung battery pack of about 14 ampere hours. So good for about 40-50 miles on a single charge. This is the same 50cc setup that you would get with an entry-level scooter, like a 50cc Vespa or a Honda, which are restricted. If they are not restricted, they can actually speed up to 35, in some cases even 40 miles an hour. So they should not be underestimated. And this is a 4-stroke, so hopefully the noise is not that loud. They are not giving the noise level in decibels. What they are giving is the power, 2 horsepower or 100 or 1,500 watts of power. just to compare, the standard Brompton kit has 250 watts. I have a 500 clogged at 700. I can tell you that by the time you get to 600, it's so powerful. If you don't dial up to that kind of power gradually, it's going to be enough power to rip the handlebar out of your hand. So I don't think anybody's going to need more than this 1500 watt setup, even for a cargo bike. And this would be excellent for a cargo bike. Now another engine, and I'm putting a link below for this one as well, which is even more interesting. It's even less expensive. This is crazy cheap stuff. Is a diesel, a 4-stroke diesel. And my interest in the diesel is that this you could possibly run off of not only biodiesel, but even off of either homemade biodiesel or just like a very high viscosity, something like a canola oil, which you could heat. If you heat the gas tank, and it has a nice metal tank, then the viscosity is going to go up. So it's going to be just like water. It's going to easily spray into the engine. The problem with biodiesel and vegetable oil diesel applications is typically that they gel easily. So the temperature goes down below 60 degrees, it's going to start gelling, but not if you heat the tank. And this is a tiny tank. You can easily attach even an external heater, like an aquarium heater, to it, which would be run from a separate battery. So it would complicate the thing a little bit, but it is something worth considering to run a teeny tiny engine on biofuels. Now another even tinier engine that you can look at is the one used for RC toys. These are put into teeny tiny toy cars, like the one you see here. These are remote controlled toys that typically run on electricity. There is an electric RC motor. These are very light. They are not nearly as sturdy as an e-bike motor, but they have been used to build e-bikes from. This is really tiny. I don't know what the performance is, but you look at the dimensions. I mean, this is ridiculous. The longest part of the engine is a little over an inch. So I guess this is going to be too small for a bike. But it's funny that this is on the market, and you could experiment with it. Now, the one thing I would not do would be, if you're going to use either an electric or a tiny combustion engine that is screwed onto the frame somewhere or attached to the luggage rack in the back, I would not drive the rear wheel. For maximum torque, you wanna drive the center. You want to drive the chain wheel. And if you have a double chain wheel, not this one, but like driving this chain wheel, if you have two of these, then you can just drive this one, which is going to give you a tremendous torque. And that's a much better way of using the tiny horsepower that you have. Well, the 2 horsepowers are plenty no matter how you apply them. Check this out. This is one of the most beautiful of all of the electric bike builds that I've ever seen. This is one of the more basic Alex Moulton bicycles, and I have shown this before. This was built more than a decade ago by an engineer. He is driving the rear wheel, but he has very high number of revolutions here, so there's high RPM, and he made this very large cog which he can turn more frequently without spinning the wheel all that fast. So driving directly one of these tiny cogs would not make as much sense. Driving this big wheel that he custom made is a far better way to go. And this is just an absolutely gorgeous setup. I'm giving a link to you below. He's actually giving away all the details of the sizes, how he did it, how he built it. So if you want to just reproduce it, you could, but this is a Moulton frame, and I don't think this is even a separable frame. No, it's not. So this is a single piece Moulton, and you can see that because in the center you don't see the separation, and also on the wires you don't see a connector. So Moultons can be purchased with or without the separability, and you typically pay a bit more if you want it to be a separable frame, but for this kind of an application, this is actually good. A gorgeous build. Now you wonder where the battery was, because this is not a gasoline build, this is a battery build. He had this wire connecting to a small battery in his backpack, and he did this something like 12 years ago. He has the computer readout here. I think this is the controller at the bottom. This is just a platform to install the motor on. I think the motor is housed inside this platform or case. Very nicely built, and this is all custom, and it's using a belt drive, and belts are not something you can infinitely build like a chain, so you have to order one that fits specifically the size that you want. So this is not easy for most of us to build. If you don't have access to a shop, if you're not a professional engineer, you might not be able to do it. But certainly this is food for thought, because you could possibly fit a very small motor somewhere here, or put in a luggage rack and put it on top of it. I don't know if you would fit it in here. Probably not. No, it's probably not going to work. But for a larger non-foldable frame like this one, that could be an answer. Now on the electric front, there are some changes. We now have the first lithium polymer battery pack available for bicycles, and this is peanuts. I paid $400 for my battery in 2017 when the US dollar was worth at least 50% more than what it's worth now. So in today's dollars, I paid maybe $600, and I'm getting 13 ampere hours. And look, this, you're getting 20 ampere hours at 48 volts for $270. So for a fraction of what I paid, you can get a much safer technology. Lithium polymer, I have not heard a single fire or explosion story from anybody yet. Of course, not many e-bikes are running on this technology yet, but it's good to see that this is coming on the market. And if I can get 50-mile range on a brand new 13 ampere hour battery, then with the 20 I might be able to get 70. In which case you can just buy two batteries, throw the second one into if you have enough of a luggage space in the rear, or you can buy a trailer and just drag it around, and you're gonna get a range well above 100 miles, which I think is phenomenal. It just goes to show where the market is going. Okay, this is it for the current video. Check out the links below and make sure to subscribe.
I'll be back.